We're gonna go into strength training for squash, and we're gonna start right now. So if we're looking at squash players like Diego Elias or Paul Cole or Ali Farag, so if we're looking at these specific athletes and we're watching them play each other, we're watching them trash talk, we're watching them hit each other, we're watching them react very, very quickly, we can look at squash and start to break down the sport and understand the requirements. And I think that the biggest aspect around strength and conditioning and strength training for squash is to really learn what the sport is about. And first we gotta say, okay, they're holding a racket. So that's immediately gonna lead to my big thing, dynamic trunk control. We've gotta make sure that their trunk is stable. The next big factor, there's so much high speed movement side to side. Okay, they're in a confined court. They're never running at top speed. Okay, they're never gonna get close to top speed because they're in a confined court. So the next aspect is locomotion is gonna be very much based off of acceleration, deceleration, acceleration, deceleration, agility, side to side movement. Okay, so that's gonna mean we've gotta have mobile ankles. We've gotta have really strong knees, really strong quads and hips, okay? Really strong glutes to have that lateral work. Also, they're gonna need to have some type of stability in their shoulder joint. Then the next factor, there's an aspect known as quiet eye. Okay, so the quiet eye is the ability for an athlete to do something at high speed, and because their trunk control is so stable, okay, they can actually dial in on where the ball would be. So think about if you're someone in basketball or football and you're tracking down, a long pass, you can dial in on the football coming into your hand. Same exact concept exists in squash. Because it's so high speed, you have to be able to see where that ball is coming to make those internal calculations to make the next shot based off of geometry and angles of where you're gonna be playing the ball. So those are some huge concepts, and the faster an athlete is, the more stable their trunk is, the healthier their shoulders are, and the more mobile their ankles are. Now they can get into different positions and really put their opponent in precarious spots. Okay, so that's really the way that we have to view this. Then we have to look at how long does the game last? How many rounds are they playing? How many games are they gonna have to play in a day? Okay, if they wanna win a world title. And then that has to factor into what's the strength endurance level that we need? What's the explosive aspect? How much impulse training do they need? Okay, so we have to view this through that lens as a coach. We cannot look at it like, I want to train these squash athletes the way I would train my shot putters or wrestlers. Oh, maybe because they're wrestlers and they have endurance and they need to be strong, that's how we should train squash players. No, that's not the case. We need to train them to be as mobile, as explosive, and as twitchy as possible. So now we're gonna break down what that's gonna look like throughout the week. That goes right into that first big one, okay? Very few sports are played backwards, okay? Think about safeties, cornerbacks, defensive backs in football. To a point, basketball players play backwards occasionally, but squash is played backwards quite a bit. So one of the big things that we can do, run backwards up hills. That's gonna help quite a bit. That's gonna help with that acceleration. That's gonna help with the strength in the knees. That's gonna help with strength around the quads. That's gonna help with strength endurance, and it's gonna help be faster. Also, we can train things like backward sled pulls, okay? Backward sled pulls with a little bit more weight. Now we're moving backwards and we get used to that backward feeling while targeting those knees. So the first exercise I would try and dial in on, backward sled pulls, backward hill sprints, anything along those lines is gonna lead to some really great performance out on that court. We also mentioned that they have to be extremely explosive. So if they have to be explosive, we have to focus on things like blast impulse. That's being as twitchy as possible. The next thing I would do then is use the 5S protocol. So you guys watching today, the squash players out there watching today, this is what the 5S protocol is. The first thing that we're gonna do is we're going to do a jump and a stop. Okay, so let's say we have a box, or let's say we have a hurdle hop, anything along those lines. We're gonna do a jump and we're gonna stop. Okay, and we're gonna get used to that stopping position. That's the first S. Second S is going slow. So we're just gonna go slow onto a box jump, land, jump slowly, land, jump slowly, land, jump slowly back up. Okay, now the third S, stutter step. We're gonna stop, we're gonna go slow, now we're going stutter step. So now when you do the counter movement, you can jump on the box, you go over a hurdle, and you can do 2 hops, jump, 2 hops, jump, 2 hops, jump. Okay, that's gonna help you learn that skill. Let's say you're trying to jump over a hurdle scenario or over mini hurdles, anything along those lines, or even jumping up bleachers, steps, something like that. Now the next S, okay, the next S is now we're gonna add some speed. Now we're gonna, instead of going slowly, or instead of stopping, or instead of having a stutter step, now we're gonna go boom, 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 rapidly through the drill. And then that last aspect that I recommend with the 5S protocol is to actually set up mini hurdles or boxes in a scenario that could resemble a situation on the court. So maybe a forward jump, land on one leg, side jump, land on one leg, forward jump, land on two legs. A complex movement like a Jan jump series, anything along those lines. Now we're getting into that fifth S, which is gonna be sport specific. So we can break down the movement pattern on the court and then create a plyometric pattern that will be sport specific. And that's where we can really start to dial in on the ankle joint, the foot speed, and anything along those lines. I would make sure you're starting your sessions doing PVC pipe walks as well. The PVC pipe is gonna help the ankle be more mobile. Again, this is some of the key concepts around squash training. Then we're gonna get into some body weight and offloaded movements, okay? So if we're looking at something like the blue collar carry, this can be an offloaded movement. We might hold a water bucket in one hand and a sandbag in the other arm. Do some weird, unique trunk work that might be body weight, that might be offloaded, that might be something like a hollow body rock with a plate overhead. Use some body weight stuff or use some trunk movements that are more complex that will help build that trunk control. So in this case, let's say we do a zombie squat or a front squat, okay? And we pair that front squat with a blue collar carry. Now, the athlete, the squash player, will create a more dynamic trunk. They will get stronger, they will improve their mobility, and then that's gonna transfer at higher speeds when they do those plyometrics that we mentioned with the 5S protocol. So you've gotta think through this training through those specific lenses. And then I always say this, so the way that we set up the week is that we're gonna do a leg power day as like the first day of training. Then we can do an upper body power day as the second day of training. Then the third day of training would be, let's do athlete day. Athlete day is where that blast impulse is gonna come into play. That's where all of those plyometrics are gonna pay off. That's where we're gonna do a lot of unilateral plyometrics, bilateral plyometrics, different movements backwards, forwards, sideways, anything along those lines. That's how we lay out the week inside of our strength training app, Peak Strength. You guys can head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. You can download it and actually select that you want to train for squash. You'll get a program specifically built out for squash-based strength training. And then that's going to take us into the next aspect. Okay, let's focus back on that upper body. Do we need to bench press 500 pounds to be a successful squash player? No, clearly not. If you look at Ali Farag, he's not benching 500 pounds. However, he has a stable shoulder girdle. So doing things like dumbbell external rotations, okay, that's a great place to start. Pull-ups, that's gonna help lengthen the lat and hit more powerful shots in that overhead position. Okay, then the next thing that we could do is maybe some light dumbbell presses to just strengthen that shoulder girdle, to strengthen the pecs a little bit. Don't have to go super crazy, but make sure we're doing that work. And then some more lat work, okay? So let's do some more neutral grip pull-ups. They can do some sled pulls with a rope. We can do some rope climbs. Those are gonna be ways to strengthen the upper body without really taxing it and taking away from the performance out on the court. Then finally, that big aspect that I do recommend is that if you're on impulse day or if you're on leg power day, I do think doing contrast-based work. Okay, so let's say you do that back squat, or you could do a single leg squat, you rest for 45 seconds, and then you do single leg mini hurdle hops. Those are fantastic ways to improve your strength endurance, to improve your explosiveness, and to increase your dynamic trunk control. Those are all phenomenal methods that we use inside of our strength training app, Peak Strength. If you guys need help with your programming, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store, because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.